Welcome one and all to F1 World Grand Prix. This game did come out on a good collection of consoles back in the day, but as per usual on this channel, I played it on the N64. Straight into the game, when we boot up, we are treated to what might very well be the greatest intro song I've heard in any racing game. It's the song you're listening to in the background right now, and man, it goes hard. It really had me excited to get into the game here. So, of course, I chose to play the Grand Prix game mode, as that's the namesake of the game, and for some reason, it's the second option on the main menu. I just thought that was pretty funny. I selected a French driver by the name of Jean Alesi and went with the rookie difficulty at first as it had assisted acceleration and braking, which I thought would be interesting to try out. Before we even get into a race here, we are bombarded with these crazy graphs and option screens of all types in order to perfectly tune our car for every race we play in this Grand Prix. This was very overwhelming to me having just booted up, so I just clicked the settings specific to the course I was on and I went with it. Getting into the race though, I noticed pretty quickly that this assisted driving stuff wasn't gonna work out for me. My car would always brake automatically way ahead of the turn that I needed to take, which really messed with my mind when I was trying to take turns naturally. I would often turn off of the road way before the turn because I didn't expect to lose as much speed as I would every time with the assisted brakes. Pretty quickly, I restarted the Grand Prix on Professional in order to lose the assisted driving functions, and it started to feel a lot better. The thing about racing in this game though, which I imagine is how F1 cars are meant to drive in the first place, is that you don't ever want to drift, even if it'll save your life. Not only is it much slower than maintaining full grip while taking a turn at low speed, it also wears out your tires really fast, and there was a pretty good amount of time when I didn't even know where the pit stops were in every race, so sliding became a problem pretty quick. I would wear out my tires really quickly and end up driving with such little traction for the rest of whichever race I was on, and it was awful. But if you don't drift, stay on the road, and manage to stay away from hitting the opponent's cars with your own, you shouldn't have to worry about losing the 10 seconds or so a pit stop takes. It's a pretty fun skill set to work on while playing this game, keeping your car in perfect condition, and it really added to the experience of playing through it. This isn't just a willy-nilly racing game where you do whatever you want on the course. After a couple races, I decided to try out these 4 other options that happened before playing the Grand Prix match, and it turns out they're all pretty much just course practice before the actual race is underway with real Grand Prix points on the line. We have Friday and Saturday practice, where you race alone and sort of get a lay of the land before participating in the competition, and then we have the qualifier race and the warm-up, which seem like they're pretty much the same as the other practice modes, aside from the fact that there are now other cars on the road, giving you an idea of what it might be like while you're racing them in the Grand Prix. All of these options can only be selected once, so you have a finite amount of times that you can run through a course before taking it to the big leagues. 4 races with 4 laps each should be pretty much all the practice that you need though. Now that I knew I could prepare as much as I need to before every race, and had a bit of a better idea how to drive in this game, I once again restarted the Grand Prix with the plan of practicing every track and getting as good a place as I could by the end of it. This turned out to be a pointless venture though, as this game proved itself to be brutally hard versus the computer players. I was most often getting placed somewhere between 10 and 17 or 18 out of the 22 racers in every match, and starting in last place is not to blame here. I am just not as good as the higher placing computer players, and it was rough, but it was also a good way to gauge my improvement in the game as I slowly began to place higher and higher. As I began to do better, I finally came around to a course that was more fit to my skill set, and I started passing a bunch of the other cars. Hoping to score my first race in the top 5 or maybe the top 3, I got a little risky on my final lap and unfortunately totaled myself completely, forfeiting the race as a whole. Kind of a bummer, but knowing that I was capable of driving well if the track suited my style was pretty uplifting compared to the lower placements I'd run into previous to this moment. After a while of racing all these courses, practicing all of them a couple times before racing them with Grand Prix points on the line, I realized that there are 17 races that I had to get through in this Grand Prix. This Grand Prix mode, especially if you're practicing races before running them for real, is not meant to be completed in one sitting. You select a save file when you start the Grand Prix, and it makes sense to me now why you do, because you will most likely be coming back to complete it another time, or maybe in more than just 2 sittings. Especially so back in the day when this game came out, where people were less likely to know live video games in the way they do today. Continuing through the final courses, I found some pretty funny instances of the AI giving me free placements, and overall my driving was getting pretty good. For the most part at least. Even with 5 or more cars randomly stopping on a turn, I wasn't able to catch the cars that were further up the track. I really just felt outclassed through this entire Grand Prix. I finished it up, and I guess I averaged out to a solid 15th place out of the 22 participating racers, and I was a little bummed out. I had fun playing through the game though, and especially once you're more used to how it feels to drive these cars, it can be a really good time. But what was the deal with these crazy CPU racers? Surely I'm not just that bad at this game. Well, it turns out this professional setting I chose at the start of the game wasn't just describing the control of the vehicle. That was the difficulty setting for the Grand Prix. I don't know why I didn't inspect this sooner, but I could have easily played on rookie mode to introduce myself properly to this game and turned off the assisted controls. I guess I just assumed the assisted controls were active under the rookie control style and went with professional looking to control my vehicle on my own. All said and done, I loved my time with F1 World Grand Prix. This game is really unique to the rest of the racing games I have on the N64, and trust me, I've got a decent amount of them. It's a really grounded, tough to control, but rewarding to get used to racing game that I think everybody should give a shot at some point. I don't know if this is a series of games or if this game was a one-off. I didn't really look into it that deep, but coming over from Trackmania, I really didn't know what to expect from a proper F1 racing game, and I left impressed. Perhaps I'll have to try out a couple more of these in the future. If you like content like this and you want to see more, consider subscribing to my channel as I'm posting every single Friday. If you're unsure about subscribing, feel free to check out the video on screen now or the playlist holding all of my ventures into playing different N64 games for the first time. I do this shit a lot. As for this week though, my name's Myloe, and I'm out.